Hey guys, so today what we're going to do is we've done this before. Oh, you can probably hear my dogs barking in the background. Sorry about that. So today what we're going to do is we're going to review short answer responses. So this is something that we did way back when, the beginning of the year, and with our very first text, we reviewed how to complete a short answer response, or how to write a paragraph responding to a question. I am going to teach you a new strategy today, one that we haven't used before. Last time, so let's just get started. So whenever we're talking about short answer responses, I want us to think of RACE, okay? That's how we're going to use when we remember the steps to short answer response. So last time when we talked about short answer responses, we used the what's called ABC format, where you A, answer the question, B, back it up, C, connect it, okay? But RACE is very similar. You do the same steps. It just kind of explains it a little bit more. So whenever we're talking about short answer responses, I want you to think of RACE. So on your note paper right now, I'm going to go through the steps of RACE. And as I go through these steps, I want you to write down what each step is, or what you're supposed to do with each step as we go through the lesson today. Okay? Write it down on your notes as we go through the lesson today. So first, R. R in RACE is obviously you're going to restate the question. So whatever the question is, you're going to restate or reword the question in order to turn it into a statement. So you need to write all this down right here. First, you're going to restate the question. That's where you're going to take the question and you're going to turn it into a statement. You're going to reword the question and turn it into a statement. So that's the R in RACE. Restate the question. R-A. The A in RACE is you're going to answer the question. So first you're going to restate it. You're going to turn it into a statement. And then at the end of that sentence, before you even end your restatement sentence, you're going to answer the question. Think about what is being asked and make sure we answer all parts of the question. Sometimes questions are a little tricky and they have multiple parts. So we need to make sure that we answer all parts of the question. At any time, if you need to pause this as you're writing down your notes, go ahead and do that, okay? So remember, we are going to RACE when we're answering short answer responses. We're going to R, restate the question. A, obviously we're going to answer it. The next one is going to be C, where we're going to cite the source. This is kind of like what we did with the ABC format where we back it up. Basically, you're providing your evidence from the text, okay? You're telling me what the text says. You're telling me what the story says. You're telling me your example from the story or from the text. So C, cite the source. Tell where you found the examples and details in the text. So you would say things like in paragraph 2 or in chapter 14, or the text states, or the author says. This is where you're introducing your evidence. So let's review so far. We are racing. We are going to race through these short answer responses by R, restating the question, by turning it into a statement. Then we're going to A, we're going to answer that question, okay? We're going to C, we're going to cite our source. So we're going to find our text evidence and we're going to back it up. Okay, we're proving our answer with that text evidence that we find. And then the last part, E, we're going to explain. We're going to explain our response. Why does this evidence that we just threw in here, what does this have anything to do with our question? Okay, so we're adding our thoughts in to our evidence and our question. So we've already given our evidence from the text to support. So now we're going to add our thoughts. We're going to say, this shows, or this means, or, for example, or this proves. We are explaining our evidence, right? You got to take it a step further. You can't just give me evidence. You have to explain the evidence now, okay? So we're going to go through 2 of these together before I send you off through the rest of the lessons on on the Schoology to do on your own. Okay, so we're going to go through 2 of these together. As we go through each of these, I want you to write down every single step on your paper. Okay, on your notes there, I want you to write down every single step. And remember, we're going to restate the question. We're going to answer the question. We're going to cite the source, and then we're going to explain. So let's get started with our first question. So the question is, how would you describe the protagonist Miguel in La Línea? First thing we're going to do is we're going to restate the question. All you're doing is you're taking this question and we're turning it into a sentence. So we would start off with, in La Línea, the protagonist, Miguel, can be described as, that's all we're doing, we're restating the question. We're taking the question and we're turning it into a statement. So make sure you write this down right here, restate the question. In La Línea, the protagonist, Miguel, can be described as, and in just a second, we're going to answer the question. That's right. Remember, you can pause this if you need to. I'm going to move on, but you can pause it if you need to. All right, so we've done our R. We've restated our question. Next letter in race is A, so we're going to answer our question. So I already have this. In my restatement, in La Línea, the protagonist Miguel can be described as, I'm going to answer it, courageous. Really short answer, one word. Sometimes answers can be whole sentences. Sometimes it's one word. It just depends on the question. So far we've here in purple, restated the question. In La Línea, the protagonist Miguel can be described as A. We've answered our question, courageous. C. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to cite the source. So we already have our restatement. In La Línea, the protagonist Miguel can be described as C. Cite the source. So described as A, we've answered it, courageous. And C, cite the source. Where are we going to get examples from the text? So my example is from chapter 14. So I said, while Miguel shows his courageousness throughout the novel, the reader is first introduced in chapter 14, when he and his sister Elena escape the police at the Guatemalan border. So far I have done my R. I've restated my question. A, I've answered it. And C, I've given my text evidence. I've cited my source from chapter 14. So, in La Línea, the protagonist Miguel can be described as courageous. While Miguel shows his courageousness throughout the novel, the reader is first introduced in chapter 14 when he and his sister Elena escape the police at the Guatemalan border. What's our last step? That's right. E, explain. So now I'm going to explain this evidence that I've just thrown out there. Okay, this citation that I've just thrown out there. So remember, I'm going to explain. I'm going to add my thoughts or explain what my evidence means. So I say, Miguel is willing to risk getting him and his sister in trouble by the police, or even killed in order to escape. It took great courage to endure this task. Remember my answer where I said, in La Línea, the protagonist Miguel can be described as, our answer was courageous, so I linked it back to my answer before with courage. So let's go over all of this again. What I want you to do now is I want you to write your entire paragraph down, each step. So we've gone through each individual step, R, A, C, E. Now I want you to copy the whole paragraph down as one big answer. Okay. In La Línea, the protagonist Miguel can be described as courageous. While Miguel shows his courageousness throughout the novel, the reader is first introduced in chapter 14, when he and his sister Elena escaped the police at the Guatemalan border. Miguel was willing to risk getting him and his sister in trouble by the police or even killed in order to escape. It took great courage to go endure this task. All right, perfect. Now let's move on to a different one, a different question. So this question is, what is La Linea, meaning the actual term, not the book, an extended metaphor for in the novel La Linea by Anne Jaramillo? What is La Linea, the line, an extended metaphor for? What does he compare? I want you to think back to the story, at the very, very end of the story. What does Miguel compare the line or the border to? He says, he makes a huge statement. If you need to go back and look at your book, you can. But he makes a statement at the end of the novel. I think that's really powerful, where he says, you know, there are many La Lineas in life, and he compares the La Linea, or the line between the U.S.-Mexican border, to something. What does he compare them to? Remember, in a metaphor, we're comparing. So we're going to answer this question with race. We're going to restate the question, answer the question, cite the source, and explain. I'm going to go through this kind of fast. So if you need to pause, go ahead and pause. Question. What is La Linea an extended metaphor for in the novel La Linea by Anne Jaramillo? So I'm restating my question. In the novel La Linea by Anne Jaramillo, the phrase La Linea is an extended metaphor for... Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to answer the question. So in the novel La Linea by Anne Jaramillo, the phrase La Linea is an extended metaphor for all the barriers or obstacles someone must cross in a lifetime. And where do we find our text evidence for this? When we cite our source. So next we need to find our text evidence to prove our answer, that this is an extended metaphor for all the barriers or obstacles someone must cross in life. So we actually find that in the final chapter. So here's my citation. In the final chapter, Miguel explains how crossing La Linea to the U.S. was just the first obstacle he faced, to be in the U.S., and there were many more La Lineas he would face in life. If you notice, guys, I'm not throwing a quote out in there. I'm paraphrasing, or I'm putting what the book says in my own words. That's the best way to do this, guys. Okay. So I've done my R. I've restated. A, I've answered my question. C, I've given my citation, my source, given my quote. And now E, I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain my answer a little bit. I'm going to explain my quote. So I say, Miguel is comparing the border he crossed to get to the U.S. to all the obstacles he has faced in life and will continue to face in the future. Now I want you to write this entire paragraph. See, we've done the step-by-step together. I want you to write this entire paragraph down now. In the novel La Linea by Anne Jaramillo, the phrase La Linea is an extended metaphor for all the barriers or obstacles someone must cross in life. In the final chapter, Miguel explains how crossing La Linea to the U.S. was just the first obstacle he faced to be in the United States, U.S. There were many more La Lineas he would face in life. Miguel is comparing the border he crossed to get to the U.S. to all the obstacles he has faced in life and will continue to face in the future. All right, guys, what I want you to do now is make sure you've written all of that down in your notes. You can pause this if you need to. And we're going to move on, and I want you to move on to the other activities that are here in the Schoology lesson.